I stared in disbelief as Cole's words hung in the air like a thick, suffocating fog. The private dinner meant to celebrate his promotion to partner had taken a devastating turn that left me feeling like the ground had crumbled beneath my feet. "I'm sorry, Mara, but I want a divorce. I've been having an affair with Jessica, and I've decided to pursue a feud with her," Cole said, his tone devoid of any remorse or emotion. My fork clattered onto the plate as my hand went limp. The man I had loved, supported, and built a life with for over a decade was casually discarding me like a worn-out accessory. The weight of his betrayal crushed my chest, making it difficult to breathe. "Why?" I managed to choke out, searching his eyes for any shred of the man I thought I knew. Cole's expression hardened, and he leaned back in his chair, as if relieved to finally shed the charade. "Jessica is young, ambitious, and her father is a major client at the firm. Our relationship helps secure my position and future prospects." The calculated coldness of his words stung like a slap in the face. Our shared dreams, our daughter Ellie, our entire life together, had been reduced to a strategic ploy in his quest for power and success. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I blinked them back, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. "How long has this been going on?" "A little over a year," he admitted without a hint of shame. I needed to maintain the appearance of a stable, family-oriented partner to align with the firm's traditional values. The realization that our marriage had been a sham for the past year made me nauseous. The nights he claimed to be working late, the distance, the lies, it all made sense now. "And Ellie?" I asked, my voice trembling with the weight of her impending heartbreak. Cole's expression remained impassive. "She'll understand. Kids are resilient." His callous disregard for our daughter's well-being ignited a fire within me. I would not let this man, this stranger, dictate the terms of our lives any longer. With a steadiness I didn't know I possessed, I met his gaze head-on. "No, Cole. You've made your choices, and now you'll face the consequences." For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed his features, but I didn't give him a chance to respond. I pushed back my chair and stood, my shoulders squared with a newfound determination. "The game's just beginning," I declared, my voice firm and unwavering. As I walked away from the wreckage of my marriage, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I would not go down without a fight. The man who had so brazenly betrayed me and our family was about to learn that he had severely underestimated the woman he had sworn to love and cherish. The door slammed behind me as I stormed into our bedroom, my hands shaking with rage. Cole followed close behind, his expression a sickening mix of annoyance and indifference. "Mara, don't be dramatic," he scoffed. "This is for the best. You'll get over it and move on." I whirled around, facing him with a fury I'd never felt before. "Get over it? You've been lying to me for over a year, carrying on an affair right under my nose." "It's just business, Mara," he said with a casual shrug. "Jessica's connection to her father's company is invaluable for my career. I had to do what was necessary." My stomach churned at his cold, calculated words. "And what about Ellie? Did you ever stop to think about how this would devastate her?" Cole's eyes narrowed. "She's a child. She'll adjust. Kids are resilient, as I said." "She's your daughter, you bastard!" I shouted, my voice cracking with emotion. "How could you be so heartless?" He took a step closer, his gaze hardening. "Watch your tone, Mara. I've been more than patient, but I won't tolerate disrespect." A bitter laugh escaped my lips. "Disrespect? You've been disrespecting me and our entire marriage for over a year. And for what? A younger woman and a chance to climb the corporate ladder?" "I did what I had to do," he said coldly. "The firm values traditional family values. A stable home life was essential for my advancement." The reality of his twisted machinations sank in, leaving me sickened. Our marriage, our family, our shared dreams, it had all been a calculated facade for his benefit. You used me," I whispered, my voice laced with disgust. "You used our life, our love, as a means to an end." Cole's expression remained impassive. "I did what was necessary for my career. You should be grateful. Without my success, you wouldn't have the comfortable life you've enjoyed." His words cut deeper than any knife, and in that moment, something inside me snapped. The man I had loved, the father of my child, was nothing more than a selfish, manipulative monster. "Get out," I said, my voice low and steady. Cole raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," I spat. Get out of my house, out of our lives. I never want to see your lying face again. For a split second, surprise flickered across his features, but it was quickly replaced by his usual arrogant sneer. You'll regret this, Mara. I can make things very difficult for you. I stood my ground, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. I'm not afraid of you anymore, Cole. You've already taken everything from me. My trust, my love, my sense of security. But you won't take my dignity or my strength. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing. With one final, disdainful look, he turned and walked out of the room, leaving me alone with the shattered remnants of my life. As the door closed behind him, the tears I had been holding back finally spilled down my cheeks. But even as I mourned the loss of the man I had once loved, a newfound resolve burned within me. Cole had made the mistake of underestimating me, and he would soon learn the true depth of my fury. I would not be a victim, not to his lies, his manipulation, or his cruelty. I would rise from the ashes of his betrayal, stronger and more determined than ever before. And when the dust settled, Cole would realize that he had awakened a force he could never hope to control. In the days following Cole's departure, a strange calmness settled over me. The initial shock and heartbreak had given way to a steely determination, fueled by the desire to reclaim control over my life. I knew I couldn't wallow in self-pity or despair, not only for my own sake, but for Ellie's. My sweet, innocent daughter deserved a strong, resilient mother, someone who could guide her through this storm with unwavering strength. So I formulated a plan, meticulously plotting each step as if it were a strategic marketing campaign. First, I hired the sharpest divorce lawyer in the city, a no-nonsense woman named Olivia Nguyen. Her reputation for being a fierce negotiator and her track record of securing favorable settlements preceded her. I want him to pay for what he's done, I told Olivia during our initial consultation, not just financially, but in every way possible. Olivia's lips curved into a slight smile. Believe me, Mrs. Townsend, by the time I'm through with him, he'll wish he'd never crossed you. With Olivia's guidance, I began gathering evidence, phone records, emails, credit card statements. Anything that could be used as leverage against Cole. Each new discovery of his deceit and manipulation only strengthened my resolve. Next, I reached out to my network of friends and colleagues, carefully crafting a narrative that would garner their sympathy and support. I needed allies, people who could help expose Cole's true nature to those who mattered most. That bastard has been carrying on an affair with his colleague for over a year. I confided in my best friend Sarah. He used me and our marriage as a stepping stone for his career. Sarah's eyes widened in disbelief, but she didn't hesitate to offer her unwavering support. That's unforgivable, Mara. I'm here for you, whatever you need. One by one, I shared my story, allowing the truth to spread through the grapevine of our social and professional circles. With each retelling, I could feel the tides shifting in my favor, as people who had once admired Cole began to see him for the selfish, manipulative man he truly was. And through it all, Cole remained oblivious, confident in his belief that I would eventually accept defeat and fade into the background. Little did he know I was merely biding my time, carefully crafting a web of truth and allies that would ultimately ensnare him. As the weeks passed, I could sense the shift in the air. Whispers and sideways glances followed Cole wherever he went, as the once respected architect became the subject of gossip and scrutiny. But I remained patient, knowing that the true reckoning was yet to come. I would not settle for mere whispers or damaged reputations. No, I wanted to strike at the very heart of what mattered most to Cole, his career, his status, his carefully cultivated image. And when the time was right, I would unleash a storm of truth and consequences that would leave him utterly devastated, just as he had devastated me. This was no longer just about revenge or retribution. It was about justice, about reclaiming my dignity and proving to the world and to myself that I was not a woman to be trifled with. Cole had awoken a fierce, determined warrior within me, and by the time our battle was over, he would deeply regret ever underestimating the power of a woman scorned. As the weeks passed, my determination only grew stronger. With Olivia's guidance, I had amassed a substantial amount of evidence against Cole. Phone records, emails, credit card statements, all pointing to his sordid affair with Jessica. but I knew that simply exposing his infidelity wouldn't be enough. I needed to strike at the very heart of what mattered most to him: his career and his precious reputation. That's when I turned to my network of friends and professional contacts, carefully cultivating a web of allies who could help me bring Cole's world crashing down around him. "Did you know that Cole's been carrying on an affair with Jessica for over a year?" I confided in my friend Marcus, who worked at a prominent advertising agency. He used our marriage as a facade to further his career. Marcus's eyes widened in shock, and I could see the gears turning in his mind as he processed the information. That's unbelievable. No wonder he's been acting so strange lately." I nodded solemnly, playing the part of the betrayed wife to perfection. "I know, it's been devastating, but I'm determined to make sure he faces the consequences of his actions." Marcus placed a comforting hand on my arm. "Mara, you have my full support. Whatever you need, just say the word." With each strategic conversation, I could feel the tide slowly turning in my favor. The once respected Cole Townsend was becoming the subject of whispers and sideways glances, as the truth of his deceit spread like wildfire through our social and professional circles. And it wasn't just my friends and colleagues who were taking notice. I had learned through my network that Cole's affair with Jessica was an open secret within his own firm, a fact that only added fuel to my burning desire for retribution. "Can you believe the nerve of that man?" I remarked to Samantha, a former colleague of Cole's, during a chance encounter at a local cafe. "He's been parading around with that young thing, completely disrespecting me and our marriage." Samantha's expression darkened. "Believe me, Mara, we've all known about it for months. The whole firm has been buzzing with rumors, but no one had the guts to confront him about it." I feigned shock and outrage, letting my emotions play out across my face. "That's despicable. How could they let him get away with something like that?" Samantha shook her head, her lips pursed in disapproval. "You know how it is in those old boys' clubs. As long as he was bringing in business and keeping the clients happy, they were willing to turn a blind eye. But I knew that their willful ignorance wouldn't last forever. As the truth continued to spread, the whispers would grow louder, the scrutiny more intense. And when the time was right, I would deliver the final blow. A devastating revelation that would shatter Cole's carefully cultivated image and bring his world crumbling down around him. Because in the end, this wasn't just about revenge or retribution. It was about justice, about reclaiming my dignity and proving to the world and to myself that I was not a woman to be trifled with. Cole had awoken a fierce, determined warrior within me, and by the time our battle was over, he would deeply regret ever underestimating the power of a woman scorned. The night of the annual architectural gala arrived, and I found myself surrounded by the very people who had once admired and respected Cole. But now, as I mingled among the crowd, I could sense a palpable shift in the air, a mixture of whispers and sideways glances that followed him wherever he went. Cole, ever the consummate actor, remained oblivious to the changing tides. He strutted around the venue, his arm draped possessively around Jessica's waist, basking in the attention and accolades like a man without a care in the world. But I knew better. Thanks to my careful cultivation of allies and strategic dissemination of information, the once revered architect was quickly becoming the subject of scrutiny and disdain within his own circles. As the evening progressed, I found myself approached by various colleagues and acquaintances, each one offering their sympathy and support. "Mara, I can't believe what that bastard has done to you," Samantha, a former colleague of Cole's, said, her voice laced with disgust. "You deserve so much better." I offered a sad smile, playing the part of the wronged wife to perfection. "Thank you, Samantha. It's been difficult, to say the least, but I'm staying strong for Ellie's sake." Samantha's expression softened, and she gave my arm a gentle squeeze. "You're an incredible woman, Mara. If anyone can get through this, it's you." As the night wore on, the whispers and sideways glances grew more pronounced, and I could sense Cole's discomfort, despite his outward bravado. He had always been a master of maintaining appearances, but even he couldn't ignore the shifting tides forever. Finally, the moment I had been waiting for arrived. Cole was summoned to the stage to receive a prestigious award, a fitting opportunity for me to deliver the final blow. As he basked in the spotlight, his eyes scanning the crowd with smug satisfaction, our gazes locked. In that moment, I allowed the mask of the wronged wife to slip, revealing the steely determination that had been simmering beneath the surface. Cole's confident expression faltered, and I could see the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. He knew, deep down, that I was no longer the meek, passive woman he had so easily discarded. With a subtle nod, I acknowledged his unspoken realization, letting him know that the game was far from over. From that moment on, Cole's discomfort was palpable. His once confident demeanor cracked as the weight of the whispers and scrutiny began to take its toll. And as the evening drew to a close, I could see the first glimmers of doubt and fear flickering across his face. He had underestimated me, that much was clear. And now, as he stood amidst the very people who had once revered him, he was forced to confront the harsh reality that his carefully cultivated world was unraveling before his very eyes. As I slipped out of the venue, a sense of grim satisfaction washed over me. The battle was far from over, but I had struck the first blow, a calculated move that had shaken Cole's confidence and exposed the cracks in his once impenetrable facade. From that moment on, there would be no turning back. I had set events in motion that would ultimately lead to his downfall, and I had no intention of showing him any mercy. After all, he had brought this upon himself, and it was high time he faced the consequences of his actions. The crisp autumn air carried a sense of anticipation as I made my way to the firm's annual partner event. This was it, the moment I had been meticulously planning for, the final act in my carefully orchestrated revenge against Cole. As I stepped into the lavish venue, my gaze immediately found Cole, surrounded by his colleagues and clients, basking in the admiration and attention like a preening peacock. Jessica was by his side, her arm possessively looped through his, a smug smile playing on her lips. I had to hand it to them. They made quite the picture-perfect couple, at least on the surface. But I knew better than anyone the depths of Cole's deceit and manipulation, and tonight I would expose him for the fraud he truly was. Steeling myself, I approached the group, my steps purposeful, and my expression carefully composed. As I drew nearer, Cole's eyes met mine, and I saw a flicker of unease cross his features. "Mara," he said, his voice laced with a mixture of surprise and thinly veiled disdain, "I didn't expect to see you here." I offered him a tight smile, refusing to be intimidated by his presence. "Of course, Cole. This is an important event for the firm, and as your soon-to-be ex-wife, I thought it only appropriate to make an appearance." Jessica's eyes narrowed at my thinly veiled jab, but before she could respond, I turned my attention to the group of partners gathered around us. "Gentlemen," I began, my voice carrying a note of solemn gravity, "I fear I must bring to light some deeply troubling news regarding our esteemed colleague, Cole Townsend." A hush fell over the group, and I could sense their collective attention shifting in my direction. Cole's face paled, but I pressed on, undeterred. "For over a year, Cole has been engaged in a sordid affair with his colleague, Jessica Wilkinson," I said, gesturing towards the stunned woman at Cole's side. "Not only has he been brazenly disrespecting the sanctity of our marriage, but he has also been using this relationship as a means to further his own career ambitions." Murmurs of shock and disbelief rippled through the crowd, and I allowed my words to sink in before delivering the final blow. "You see, gentlemen, Jessica's father is a major client of the firm," I continued, my voice steady and unwavering. "And it seems that Cole saw this affair as a way to ingratiate himself with her father, securing his favor and advancing his own professional interests." The partners exchanged uneasy glances, their expressions ranging from disgust to outright horror. Cole, for his part, had gone deathly pale, his lips pressed into a thin line as he struggled to maintain his composure. "This is preposterous," he finally managed to sputter, but the conviction in his voice was wavering. I turned to face him, my eyes blazing with a mixture of fury and triumph. "Is it, Cole? Because from where I'm standing, it seems you've been playing us all for fools, using our firm's values of integrity and family as a smokescreen for your own selfish ambitions." Cole opened his mouth to respond, but I held up a hand, silencing him. "Save your lies and excuses," I said, my voice ringing with a newfound strength. "The truth has finally come to light, and it's time for you to face the consequences of your actions." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving Cole to confront the fallout of his deceit. As I made my way through the crowd, I could hear the hushed whispers and murmurs of disbelief, punctuated by the occasional voice raised in outrage. It was done. The truth had been laid bare, and Cole's carefully constructed facade had crumbled around him. There would be no coming back from this. His lies and manipulations had finally caught up with him, and he would be forced to face the consequences of his actions. As for me, a sense of cathartic relief washed over me. The weight of his betrayal, the anger and hurt I had carried for so long, had finally been lifted. I was free to rebuild my life and my sense of self, unburdened by the lies and deception that had once threatened to consume me. And as I stepped out into the cool night air, I couldn't help but feel a sense of triumphant vindication. Cole had underestimated me, thinking that I would simply fade into the background, resigned to my fate as a discarded wife. But he had been sorely mistaken. I was not a woman to be trifled with, and in the end, it was his own arrogance and hubris that had brought about his downfall. As I walked away from the wreckage of his carefully constructed life, I couldn't help but feel a sense of grim satisfaction. The battle was over, and I had emerged victorious, stronger, wiser, and forever changed by the experience. The aftermath of my explosive revelation at the partner event was swift and uncompromising. Within days, the news of Cole's deceit had spread like wildfire, igniting a firestorm of controversy and backlash that he could no longer ignore. As I sat across from Olivia, my steadfast legal counsel, she couldn't help but wear a satisfied smirk. "I must say, Mara, your approach was nothing short of brilliant," she remarked, shuffling through a stack of documents. "Cole's professional reputation is in tatters, and the firm has no choice but to address the matter swiftly and decisively." I nodded, a sense of grim satisfaction washing over me. He brought this upon himself. It's time he faced the consequences of his actions. Olivia's expression turned serious. "Speaking of consequences, I have an update on the divorce proceedings. With the evidence we've gathered and the damage to Cole's reputation, we're in a prime position to secure favorable terms." A weight lifted from my shoulders at her words. After months of meticulous planning and execution, the prospect of finally putting this nightmare behind me was within reach. "What are the terms?" I asked, steeling myself for the details. Olivia flipped open a file, her eyes scanning the contents. Full custody of Ellie, with Cole granted supervised visitation rights. A substantial portion of his assets and investments will be awarded to you, including the house and a generous alimony payment. Relief flooded through me at the thought of securing a stable future for Ellie and myself, free from Cole's toxic influence. And his professional standing? I couldn't help but inquire, a hint of vindictive satisfaction creeping into my voice. Olivia's lips curved into a wolfish grin. "Let's just say his days as a partner at the firm are numbered. The senior partners are absolutely livid about the potential fallout and scandal. They've already suspended his promotion pending a full review." I allowed myself a small, victorious smile. Cole's carefully cultivated world was crumbling around him, just as he had once sought to destroy mine. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with an incoming message. I glanced at the screen and felt a surge of smug satisfaction upon seeing the name, Jessica. "Speak of the devil," I muttered, opening the message. Jessica's words were a jumbled mess of anger and desperation. "You've ruined everything. Cole's facing termination, and my father is threatening to pull his accounts. This wasn't supposed to happen." I couldn't help but let out a derisive snort. Of course, the self-absorbed girl had been too blinded by her own ambitions to see the truth, that she was merely a pawn in Cole's twisted game. With a few taps, I crafted a succinct response. "Actions have consequences. You and Cole made your choices, now you get to live with them." Olivia arched an eyebrow, clearly sensing the finality in my tone. "No remorse, I take it?" I shook my head, a steely resolve settling over me. "None whatsoever. They brought this upon themselves through their selfish actions. It's time they faced the consequences." As I hit send on the message, a weight seemed to lift from my shoulders. The long, arduous battle was finally nearing its end, and I had emerged victorious. Battered, perhaps, but fundamentally unbroken. Cole's world might be crumbling around him, but mine was just beginning to rebuild, stronger and more resilient than ever before. The divorce settlement would provide the stability and security Ellie and I needed to start anew, free from the shackles of his betrayal. And as for Cole himself? Well, he would be left to grapple with the fallout of his own hubris and deceit, isolated and alone, a cautionary tale of what happens when ambition and greed consume one's moral compass. As I gathered my things and prepared to leave Olivia's office, a sense of closure washed over me. The journey had been long and painful, but I had emerged on the other side, battle-tested and fiercely determined. Cole had underestimated me, thinking I would simply fade into the background, resigned to my fate as a discarded wife. But he had been sorely mistaken. I was not a woman to be trifled with, and in the end it was his own arrogance and hubris that had brought about his downfall. And as I stepped out into the crisp autumn air, I couldn't help but feel a sense of triumphant vindication. The war was over, and I had emerged victorious, stronger, wiser, and forever changed by the experience. The day of the final divorce hearing arrived, and I found myself standing tall, surrounded by the unwavering support of my friends and colleagues. Olivia, ever the consummate professional, gave my arm a reassuring squeeze as we made our way into the courtroom. Cole was already there, a shadow of his former self. His once pristine suit hung loosely on his frame, and his eyes were hollowed, betraying the weight of his downfall. Jessica was nowhere to be seen, having disappeared from his life as quickly as she had entered it. As the proceedings began, I couldn't help but steal a glance in his direction. His shoulders were slumped, his expression one of defeated resignation. It was almost enough to elicit a twinge of pity. Almost. But then I remembered the depths of his deceit, the callous way he had discarded our marriage and our family for his own selfish ambitions. Any fleeting sympathy I might have felt evaporated in an instant, replaced by a steely resolve to see this through to the end. Olivia was a force to be reckoned with, methodically laying out the evidence of Cole's infidelity and manipulation, his blatant disregard for the sanctity of our vows and the emotional well-being of our daughter. With each damning piece of evidence, Cole seemed to shrink further into himself, unable to meet my gaze. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the judge cleared his throat and delivered his ruling. In light of the overwhelming evidence presented, as well as Mr. Townsend's egregious breach of marital trust and conduct, I am awarding Mrs. Townsend full custody of the minor child Ellie, he stated, his voice carrying the weight of authority. A collective murmur rippled through the courtroom, but I remained stoic, my focus unwavering. The judge continued, "Furthermore, Mrs. Townsend will receive a significant portion of the marital assets, including the family home and a substantial alimony payment." Olivia shot me a triumphant glance, and I couldn't help but feel a surge of relief washing over me. The nightmare was finally coming to an end, and I had emerged victorious, securing a stable future for Ellie and myself. As the judge's gavel fell, sealing the ruling, I turned to face Cole one last time. His head was bowed, his shoulders slumped in defeat. In that moment, he looked utterly broken, a shell of the once confident, ambitious man he had been. A part of me felt a twinge of pity. After all, we had once loved each other, shared dreams and aspirations. But that fleeting emotion was quickly overshadowed by the weight of his betrayal and the pain he had inflicted upon our family. Without a word, I turned and left the courtroom, surrounded by the warm embrace of my support system. Ellie was waiting for me, her innocent eyes filled with a mixture of confusion and hope. "Is it over, Mommy?" she asked, her small hand slipping into mine. I nodded, offering her a reassuring smile. "Yes, sweetheart, it's over. We can start our new life now, just you and me." As we made our way out of the courthouse, I couldn't help but feel a sense of cathartic relief. The weight of Cole's deception, the anger and hurt I had carried for so long, had finally been lifted. I was free to rebuild my life and my sense of self, unburdened by the lies and deception that had once threatened to consume me. In the days and weeks that followed, I watched as the pieces of my new life began to fall into place. My professional network, recognizing my resilience and determination, opened doors to new opportunities. And slowly but surely, the wounds inflicted by Cole's betrayal began to heal, replaced by a newfound sense of strength and self-assurance. As for Cole, the last I heard, he had been demoted from his partnership at the firm, his reputation in tatters. Rumors swirled of his descent into a spiral of self-destruction, isolated and alone, a cautionary tale of what happens when ambition and greed consume one's moral compass. But I refused to dwell on his fate, choosing instead to focus on the future. A future forged by my own resilience and determination. For too long, I had allowed Cole's actions to define me, to dictate the course of my life. But no more. I was Mara Townsend, a woman reborn from the ashes of betrayal, stronger and more resilient than ever before. And as I looked into Ellie's eyes, brimming with love and hope, I knew that our journey was just beginning. The road ahead might be uncertain, but one thing was clear. I was a force to be reckoned with, and I would never again allow anyone to underestimate the power of a woman scorned.